So here we have the opposing argument. Here's what students who believe that accepting the money, that applying for the scholarship is okay, say. After the writer of this essay, so Taylor Dunham, after Taylor puts forth the opposition's argument, she then writes, "This argument, although attractive, is flawed." So here we're pointing out how the opposition has some sort of faulty analysis. And then she goes on to explain how that analysis is indeed faulty. At the end of the paragraph, she goes back to her own argument. And she says, to do anything except not apply for the scholarship is to further the cause of the individual who set it up. And here then we have a recommendation from the writer. The best way to register a protest is to change the requirements of the scholarship. So to work to change that race restriction. All right, so we have the opposing view. The writer refutes the opposing view and then continues on to further her own argument against the scholarship. The next paragraph is another refutation of an opposing argument. She says, "Another letter to this newspaper," so the school newspaper, "made the point that a number of other restricted scholarships are available at the school and no one seems to question them. For example, one is for the children of veterans, another is for women, and yet another is earmarked for African Americans. Even though these scholarships have restrictions, to assume that all restrictions are the same is to make a hasty generalization. Women, African Americans, and the children of veterans are groups that many believe deserve special treatment. Both women and African Americans have been discriminated against for years, and, as a result, educational opportunities have been denied them. Earmarking scholarships for them is simply a means of restoring some measure of equality. The children of veterans have been singled out because their parents have performed an extraordinary service for their country. Whites, however, do not fall into either of these categories. Special treatment for them is based solely on race and has nothing to do with any objective standard of need or merit." Okay, so again, we have another, a similarly organized paragraph. We put forth an opposing view, an opposing argument, in other words, a counter argument. So the counter argument is that other scholarships at the school also have restrictions. And then we have examples, so children of veterans, women, and African Americans. So the counter argument then is, well, if other scholarships make restrictions, then why can't a scholarship restrict it in favor of Caucasians? And then the writer addresses this counter argument. She refutes the counter argument. She says that the restrictions for those other scholarships are based on an attempt to restore equality, whereas whites don't fall into that same category. So they're not, a scholarship for white people is not attempting to restore equality. Neither is it attempting to contribute some appreciation for the service performed by veterans. So because whites do not fall into those categories, this writer claims that, it's totally different. It's not the same thing at all, and therefore it's not just special treatment, it's only perpetuating a racist view in society. Okay, so then we come to the conclusion. So far, the thesis statement has indeed, my expectations based on the thesis statement have indeed been met. So let's go back to the thesis statement quickly here and just remind ourselves of what it was. "It is my view that despite arguments to the contrary, applying for the Anna Todd Jennings Scholarship furthers the racist ideas held by its founder." So my expectations were that the writer would show how this scholarship is indeed racist, explain why we should not apply for it, and should present the counter arguments, so arguments to the contrary, and then refute them. So we had two arguments that explained why the scholarship was racist and how it was racist. And then we had two arguments against her own view that were then refuted, which furthered her own argument. So yes, my expectations based on her thesis statement were indeed met. Lastly, we have a concluding paragraph, and it says, "I hope that by refusing to apply for the Anna Todd Jennings Scholarship, I have encouraged other students to think about the issues involved in their own decisions. All of us have a responsibility to ourselves and to society." So these sentences are not only the beginning of the conclusion, but also a restatement of the ideas in that thesis. So discussing its racist values and also kind of encouraging students to not apply for it, which is what her point was. If we truly believe that racism in all its forms is evil, then we have to make a choice between sacrifice and hypocrisy. Faced with these options, our decision should be clear. Accept the loss of funds as an opportunity to explore your values and fight for your principles. If you do, this opportunity is worth far more than any scholarship. So here, these last few sentences are concluding statements. They make us feel like this essay has come to an end. The writer has emphasized the main point of the whole essay and, expanded what she means by this. In the concluding paragraph, however, we don't have any last-minute arguments or new information. It's simply a summary of what has come before it, which is exactly what a conclusion should do. Conclusion should not include any new information. The only thing missing from this first essay that we're going to look at is in-text citations. So this essay is a great example of a basic essay. Its structure is the same as pretty much all the essays we've written here. Introduction with a thesis statement, 2 arguments for, 2 arguments against with refutations, and then a conclusion. However, it is not a documented essay. And unfortunately, there are moments in this essay that should have been documented. For instance, anytime that she refers to this newspaper and gives examples of the information from that newspaper, there should have been an in-text citation and a corresponding full citation on a works cited page. In addition to that, in the first argument, at the end of this paragraph, it says, according to one expert, such challenges have been upheld by courts. The will of the 18th century financier Stephen Girard, limited access is just one example. This should have been documented as well. This information is obviously not from the student's own mind, but the student probably read it somewhere, and the student should have included information on how the reader could find the original source for that information. Despite not being documented, this first essay is a great example of a basic structure for an argumentative essay. Next, we're going to be looking at Thiel-Pfeiffer, so go ahead and start the next video for that.